I was halfway through tightening a valve in the middle of a high-pressure zone when my phone buzzed. Normally, I wouldn't check it. Rules were clear about distractions on site, but something about the vibration wouldn't stop. I reached into my coveralls and glanced at the screen. Gavin, there's a moving truck at your house. Tara's loading furniture into it. Some guy is bossing the movers around. The text was from Jim, my neighbor. I stared at it for a second. That didn't make sense. Tara hadn't mentioned anything about movers. We talked just this morning. I called Jim. What's going on? I asked, still crouched next to the pressurized line. Man, I don't know how to say this. She's clearing the place out. Couch, dining table, even the TV. And there's this guy with her tall beard, acting like he owns the place. My chest tightened. I radioed in. Emergency family issue. I gotta go. I didn't wait for permission. I just ran. By the time I got in the truck and peeled out of the lot, my hands were shaking. It took me 40 minutes to get home, 40 minutes of every horrible scenario playing out in my head. Car accident? Midlife crisis? None of it made sense. Tara would have told me, right? But when I pulled up to our house in Lafayette, Louisiana, it was all right there in front of me. A moving truck parked in the driveway. 2 guys carrying out our bedroom set. And Tara, my wife of 13 years, standing on the porch, arms crossed, like she was supervising the whole thing. And him. The guy standing next to her with his hands in his pockets and a smug expression plastered across his face. I slammed the door and stormed toward them. Tara, what the hell is going on? My voice came out louder than I meant it to, but I didn't care. The man stepped forward like he had a right to answer for her. She doesn't owe you an explanation. I blinked. Who the hell are you? He tilted his head slightly. Nathan. That name hit me like a slap. Nathan. Her ex. The one she used to talk about like some bad habit she'd kicked. I didn't think. I just swung. My fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling into the bushes beside the porch. One of the movers dropped a lamp and cursed under his breath. Tara didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at me like I was an annoyance. Like I was the one interrupting something important. You done? She asked, arms still crossed. The neighbors had started gathering by now. A couple peeked from behind their blinds. Someone was already on the phone. Cops would be here any minute. I looked back at Nathan, who was sitting up now, holding his jaw and glaring like he hadn't just trespassed into my life. Tara, I said, trying to lower my voice. What the hell is going on? She shrugged. I'm leaving, Gavin. Nathan and I are together. We've been planning this for a while. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you just decided to ransack the house while I was at work? While I'm risking my life on a rig? You weren't supposed to come home, she said, like that was a perfectly rational answer. A police cruiser rolled up before I could say anything else. The 2 officers got out slowly, watching us carefully. What's the situation here? One of them asked. She attacked our property, I said, pointing to the movers and the truck. Tara scoffed. These are my things, too. I'm just taking what belongs to me. The cops asked for IDs, started separating us, asking questions. One of them led Tara to the side and started scribbling in a notebook. 10 minutes later, the verdict was in. Ma'am, one of the officers said to Tara, you're entitled to your personal belongings. Clothing, hygiene products, etc. Anything beyond that could be considered joint property, and removing it without consent could constitute theft. Her face dropped for the first time since I arrived. This is my furniture. Not if it was purchased during the marriage, the cop said firmly. Nathan muttered something under his breath and got a warning look from the other officer. In the end, they let her take a few boxes. The rest stayed. The truck pulled away half empty, Nathan sulking in the passenger seat. Tara didn't even look back at me. She climbed into her car, slammed the door, and drove off. I stood in the driveway, still in my coveralls, still covered in dirt from the field, staring at the house I thought we'd built together. And just like that, everything I thought I knew crumbled in broad daylight. I was still standing in the living room, staring at the blank spot where our couch used to be, when I heard the front door creak open. Kayla. She walked in like she didn't have a care in the world, earbuds in, backpack slung over one shoulder, hair pulled into a messy bun. 16 years old and already more confident than I'd ever been. Hey, she said casually, kicking off her shoes. You're home early. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She looked up, finally noticing the mess, boxes stacked against the wall, furniture missing, the strained look on my face. What happened? She asked, pulling out one of her earbuds. I sat down on one of the dining chairs, one of the few pieces of furniture Tara hadn't touched, and motioned for her to join me. She frowned but walked over. Dad? I cleared my throat. Your mom left. Kayla blinked, not looking shocked, just resigned. Yeah, I figured. I stared at her. You figured? She looked down at her hands. I kind of knew it was coming. You knew. My voice cracked a little. Kayla shrugged. She's been talking about moving out for weeks. Said she and Nathan were thinking of getting a place together. I felt like someone had just pulled the air out of the room. You knew about Nathan? She nodded. He's been coming over when you're at work. Mostly during the day. Mom always made me promise not to say anything. My mouth went dry. So you've just been okay with this? She looked at me then. Really looked. And her face didn't show anger or sadness. Just a kind of cool detachment I didn't know how to read. Dad, she said quietly, I'm not saying it's right. But I think Nathan makes her happier. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Happier? I mean, yeah, she said, like it was obvious. They laugh more. She smiles when he's around. I've never seen her like that with you. I stood up, walked a few feet away, then turned back. Kayla, do you think I wanted things to be like that? I work insane hours to keep this house running. I've missed birthdays and school plays so we could keep the lights on. You think I did that for me? I'm not saying you didn't try, she said. You did. But I think, maybe you and Mom were just never meant to be. My chest felt like it was caving in. And Nathan is? That's what you think. She hesitated. I think he gets her. And I think she wanted someone who didn't just come home and pass out on the couch after work. I stared at her, stunned. You think I'm the reason she left? No, she said, and for a moment I thought maybe she was coming back to me. I think she always had one foot out the door. I think she married you because you were safe. My hands dropped to my sides. What the hell is that supposed to mean? She used to say it when she was mad, Kayla whispered. That you were good on paper. That you'd never leave. That you'd always provide. I turned away from her, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I was trying to stay calm, to not lose it in front of my daughter, but it felt like I was being peeled apart layer by layer. Was there anyone else who knew? I asked, voice low. She didn't answer right away. Then, Grandma did. And Uncle Ross. I laughed, bitter, quiet, almost manic. So everyone knew but me. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to hurt you, she said softly. I looked back at her, my own daughter, the kid I thought I was protecting, the one person I thought was still on my side. No, Kayla. You didn't tell me because you picked a side. And it wasn't mine. Her eyes started to tear up, but I was past that now. Past anger. Past heartbreak. Just hollow. I'm sorry, Dad, she said, voice cracking. I nodded, though I didn't mean it. I didn't know what I meant anymore. I turned and walked into the hallway, each step heavier than the last. Somewhere between the sound of the moving truck driving away and Kayla telling me I was just a placeholder in my own marriage, something inside me broke. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to fix it. The next morning, I sat in a leather chair across from a lawyer who looked like she could file a motion with one hand and rip a man's soul out with the other. Her name was Elise Hampton. I'd found her online the night before after tossing and turning until dawn. She leaned back, flipped through my paperwork, and raised one eyebrow. So she was emptying the house while you were on site at a petroleum field? Yeah, I said, still in yesterday's shirt, still half dead inside. With her ex-boyfriend. They had movers. Elise nodded slowly, like this wasn't even close to the worst thing she'd heard. And your daughter knew about the affair? She asked, barely glancing up. I hesitated. Yeah. She on your side? I swallowed. Not really. Elise clicked her pen twice, then said, Okay, here's what we're going to do. She laid it all out like a general preparing for war. We'd file for divorce immediately. We'd request a temporary restraining order on asset withdrawals. We'd freeze the joint savings account, except it wasn't joint anymore by noon that day. I'd already withdrawn every dollar except the 10% she had contributed, and that was only because Elise insisted we stay technically fair on paper. By 2 p.m., I'd moved the money into a separate account under my name only. The paperwork had been filed electronically by 4. I'll prepare the emergency motion, she said, tapping the side of her laptop. If she contests it, we'll show the moving truck photos and the police report. You have a copy of that, right? I nodded. Jim sent me video. Doorbell Kim caught the whole thing. Elise actually smiled. This is going to be fun. I wasn't smiling, but I appreciated that at least one person in this situation was on my side. Back home, I started pulling everything with her name on it. I canceled the shared credit card and called every insurance company. Life, health, auto, home. Removed her as beneficiary on my 401k and work policy. The will? Changed. Executor, medical power of attorney, every last detail. Gone. I even removed her from the backup emergency contacts at my company, just in case she ever got a bright idea about faking a family emergency to find out where I was stationed. There was something cold and clean about the process. Every time I hit submit on a form or dropped a signed paper into a mailing envelope, I felt a little more solid again. Less like a ghost floating through someone else's disaster. I called my cousin, Drew, who worked at a storage company, and arranged for a short-term unit. Then I started boxing up every photo of us. Every framed picture from a vacation she said she enjoyed but probably hated. Every little trinket from the early years when I thought we were building something real. By sundown, the walls were empty. The house looked less like a home and more like a stage that had been struck after the final performance. The last thing I did was walk into our bedroom and pull open the drawer where she kept old cards and notes. She used to say she kept them because they meant something. I stared at them for a moment, then tossed the entire bundle into a trash bag and walked it straight to the curb. At some point that night, Kayla knocked gently on the door to the living room. I didn't answer. I just kept staring at the wall. "Dad," she said through the door. "Are we going to talk about any of this?" "We'll see," I said. I didn't mean to be cruel, but I was done being the guy who fixed everything. The guy who absorbed betrayal and put on a smile for the family. This wasn't a repair job. It was a controlled demolition, and I was making sure I got to keep the land underneath when it was all over. The first hearing was set for a Wednesday morning 2 weeks later. I arrived early, shaved, suit pressed, every document indexed and clipped into labeled folders. Elise was already there, calm as ever, scrolling through her tablet with a coffee in one hand. "Nice suit," she said, looking like a man who's not here to play games. I wasn't. Then they walked in. Tara wore a silky navy dress, and that same smug smile I'd seen when she stood on our porch with Nathan. Speaking of, he was right behind her, wearing a jacket that was clearly borrowed, maybe even from a thrift store, and a tie that didn't know what it was doing. Her lawyer, a guy named Patrick, looked like he had either just passed the bar or borrowed someone else's license. He fumbled with a manila envelope and whispered to Tara like he was scared of her. Elise leaned over to me. "That's the cavalry?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The judge entered, and court came to order. We started with the financials. Elise stepped up and presented a meticulous timeline of Tara's attempt to clear out our joint assets. Screenshots of the text from Jim, photos from the doorbell cam, and copies of the police report. She highlighted the itemized list I made after the attempted move-out, showing exactly what Tara had tried to take, some of which had been purchased solely with my income. Then came the bank records. Elise showed how I had left Tara's 10% contribution untouched, and how I moved the remainder to protect it from further unauthorized access. "Mr. Allen acted within his rights," Elise said clearly. And had he not, Ms. Allen would have absconded with shared property, assisted by a third party with no legal standing in the residence. Patrick stood to rebut but stumbled over his words. "Your Honor, my client, believes she had a right to access." The judge raised one hand. She attempted to remove a bedroom set and electronics without a court order. "That's not accessing. That's emptying." Tara's face twitched, but she stayed quiet. Then came the question of alimony. Patrick submitted a request for temporary spousal support. Elise countered with a printout of Nathan's LinkedIn profile, showing his income from a business consultancy he'd started 2 years ago. "Nathan Coles has been in a live-in relationship with Ms. Allen for at least 6 months, Elise said, flipping to another document. "We have evidence of shared mail, digital correspondence, and rent payments. If she needs support, she can get it from her new partner." The judge looked at Tara. "Is this accurate, ma'am?" Tara shifted in her seat. We weren't technically living together until recently." Elise smiled politely. "Our records show he's been receiving Amazon packages at her address for 9 months. No alimony." Then came the house. The judge reviewed the deed, saw both names, and asked if there was a dispute. Tara's lawyer mumbled something about fairness and fresh starts. Elise didn't flinch. "Mr. Allen has offered to buy out Ms. Allen's share at assessed value, minus damage to the home caused during the attempted unauthorized move-out, including a dented wall and scratched hardwood." The judge nodded. "Offer accepted. Mr. Allen retains primary ownership of the home. Ms. Allen will vacate within 30 days. Tara turned to Nathan, who didn't look smug anymore. "And then custody." Kayla had been staying with me since the split. I hadn't fought her on anything. I hadn't tried to sway her. But I kept a record of everything: meals, school drop-offs, messages from her counselor about consistency. Tara's lawyer made a weak argument about shared custody and parental flexibility. Then the judge asked, where would the child be staying during school term? Tara hesitated. We were planning on moving, eventually. Out of state. The judge asked. Nathan looked down. Tara nodded. Does the minor know? Silence. I spoke for the first time. She doesn't. That ended it. Tara gave up custody. She didn't even argue. It was like she'd planned to let Kayla go all along but hadn't bothered to mention it until she was backed into a corner. I glanced at Kayla, sitting on the bench behind us. Her face had gone pale. She wasn't crying, but the betrayal was there in her eyes. Her mom had picked a man over her, had chosen a future somewhere else and forgotten to include her in the plans. The judge finalized the temporary custody arrangement. Kayla would live with me full-time. Tara could request visitation, but only after settling into a permanent residence and submitting a stability plan. Court was adjourned. We all stood up. Nathan looked like he wanted to disappear. Tara didn't say a word. She just stared at me, then at Kayla, and then looked down at her shoes. Outside the courtroom, the sun was too bright. I turned to Kayla, ready to walk to the parking lot in silence. But she stopped me with one word. Why? I looked at her. Why didn't she tell me? She said, her voice cracking. She didn't even tell me she was letting me go. I had no answer. And I realized right then, this wasn't just about Tara choosing someone else. It was about her choosing not to be a mother. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like the one who lost. I felt like the one who stayed. Kayla didn't say much on the drive home. She sat in the passenger seat with her arms crossed, her face turned toward the window like she didn't want me to see the tears she was holding back. I didn't push her. I didn't say anything. I was still trying to process the way Tara just gave up custody like it was a car lease she no longer wanted. That night, Kayla didn't eat dinner. She went straight to her room, locked the door, and didn't come out, not even when I knocked to check on her. I heard muffled crying through the wall. I sat in the kitchen for hours, just staring at a takeout box, wondering how we'd ended up here, two people left behind, trying to figure out how to fit into what was left. 2 days later, I moved out. I didn't sell the house, not yet, but I couldn't stay in it. Every room felt poisoned. Every photo frame I'd taken down left a ghost of something fake behind it. I found a small apartment across town, about 20 minutes from the refinery. It was on the second floor, no elevator, smelled faintly of mildew, and the water heater groaned like it was on life support, but it was mine. I left Kayla with Tara's parents temporarily, something I never imagined I'd do. But I needed space. I needed to breathe without the constant ache of betrayal sitting next to me at the dinner table. And Kayla, she'd chosen her mother's side when it mattered most. I wasn't ready to forget that. A week after I moved, she called. Her voice was quiet. Why haven't you come to see me? I've been busy, I said flatly. That's not true. I didn't answer. She sighed. Are you mad at me? I'm not mad. Then what are you? I looked around my tiny apartment. The bare walls. The unpacked boxes. The mattress on the floor. I'm trying to get my life back together, Kayla. You think I'm not? Her voice cracked on the last word. I heard it then, the pain. Not just anger or rebellion, but something deeper. Regret. Confusion. She didn't understand what had happened any more than I did. Can we talk? She asked. I hesitated. I don't know. There was a long pause. Then, you're shutting me out, Dad. I closed my eyes, leaning against the kitchen counter. You picked her. You picked him. And you knew. You watched it happen and never said a word. I didn't pick anyone, she said quickly. I was just trying to survive. Yeah? Well, so was I. Another silence. I didn't know she was going to leave me, she whispered. I thought she'd take me with her. That's what she told me. That stopped me. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. A couple days later, I got a call from Tara's mother, Barbara. Her voice was calm but strained, like she'd rehearsed the conversation ahead of time. Gavin, I know things are raw, but Kayla's not doing well. My stomach twisted. What do you mean? She's barely sleeping. Her grades are dropping. She won't talk to anyone. I rubbed my eyes. What do you want me to do, Barbara? She made her choice. She's 16, she said sharply. You're the adult. I felt that hit like a punch. She needs her father, Gavin, even if she doesn't know how to ask for him. I sat down at my small kitchen table, the chair creaking under me. Then Barbara added something I wasn't expecting. She told me Tara threatened to send her to boarding school if she told you about the affair. I blinked. What? She said she was scared. Said she didn't want to lose both her parents. And when Tara started bringing Nathan around, she tried to pretend it was normal. She was trying to protect you. The words landed like lead in my chest. All this time I thought Kayla had betrayed me. But she'd been manipulated, cornered, and scared. I sat there for a long time after the call ended. Then I picked up my phone and scrolled to her name. I stared at it for a few seconds, then hit call. She answered after one ring. "Hey," she said, her voice small. "Hey." There was a pause. "I want to talk," I said. "Okay," she whispered. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was still something left worth saving. 2 days later, I drove out to Tara's parents' place. They lived just outside of Abbeville, on a quiet little stretch of road where the only sounds were birds and the hum of an old refrigerator. Barbara greeted me at the door with a soft, tired smile and led me to the back porch without saying much. Kayla was already there. She sat on the swing, knees hugged to her chest, wearing an oversized hoodie and pajama pants, hair pulled back messily like she hadn't bothered with anything all day. She looked small, not 16 going on 17 like she'd acted last month, but like a little kid trying to disappear. She didn't look at me as I stepped outside. I sat down slowly in the chair beside her. The wooden swing creaked as she shifted. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly. I nodded. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me." I wasn't sure either. We sat there in silence for a moment, listening to the wind push through the trees. Then she said, "I lied to you." I looked over at her. Her eyes stayed forward, locked on some invisible spot beyond the porch steps. When I said I thought Mom and Nathan were soulmates. When I said I knew about the affair and was okay with it. That wasn't true. I stayed quiet. She made me promise not to tell you. Swore me to it. Said if I even hinted that she was seeing someone else, she'd send me to a private school in Houston. Said I was being dramatic. That you wouldn't understand. I clenched my jaw. Boarding school. She showed me brochures, Kayla whispered. Said she'd already talked to one of the admissions offices. I thought she was bluffing, but then she started threatening it every time I asked questions. I felt a sick weight settle in my chest. "I hated lying to you," she said. "But I didn't know what else to do. I was scared. I thought if I told you, I'd lose everything." I exhaled slowly, staring at the porch floorboards. "She brought him over all the time," she continued, voice cracking now. "While you were at work. Sometimes she made me stay in my room. Sometimes she made me talk to him, like it was normal. And I kept thinking maybe if I acted okay with it, she wouldn't send me away." A tear slipped down her cheek, and she wiped it fast, like it embarrassed her. "I didn't pick her over you, Dad. I was just stuck." I looked at her, this kid I'd raised, this girl who used to sit on my shoulders at crawfish boils and scream during Saints games like her life depended on the outcome. And I realized I'd been so wrapped up in my own hurt, I hadn't stopped to wonder if maybe she was hurting too. "I thought you chose her," I said quietly. She shook her head. "I didn't choose anybody. I was just hoping someone would choose me." That hit me harder than anything Tara ever said. "Kayla," I said, my voice thick. "I should have been there. I should have asked more questions. Fought harder for you." She finally looked at me, eyes rimmed red. "I wanted to come with you. After court. I wanted to go home with you. But you didn't even ask." I swallowed hard. "I didn't think you wanted me." She let out a shaky breath. "I did. I just didn't know if I still had a place." We sat there for a while, the quiet between us finally feeling less like a wall and more like an opening. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my apartment key. Held it in my palm. "I have an extra bed. It's not much, but it's yours if you want it." She stared at the key. "I'm not saying we're perfect," I added. "I'm still figuring stuff out. But the door's open." She didn't answer right away. Then she reached over and took the key with both hands. "Can I come over this weekend?" "Yeah," I said, barely holding back my own emotions. "You can come home whenever you want." She nodded slowly. "Okay." And for the first time since Tara left, I felt something shift inside me, not a fix, not a clean break, but the start of a healing I didn't know I still had room for. The wreckage wasn't behind us yet, but at least we weren't standing in it alone anymore. That Saturday, I waited by the window like a kid watching for the ice cream truck. I don't know what I expected. Maybe that she'd change her mind. Maybe that Tara would talk her out of it. But at exactly 3:30, a silver sedan pulled into the lot. Barbara was driving. Kayla sat in the passenger seat, hugging a pillow to her chest like a shield. I stepped outside as the car stopped. Barbara gave me a tight, hopeful smile, but didn't get out. Kayla opened the door slowly and climbed out, her pillow still clutched under one arm and a duffel bag slung over the other. "You sure you're okay?" Barbara asked her gently. Kayla nodded without turning around. "Yeah, I'll call you later." Barbara met my eyes, and for a second, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time: respect. Maybe not for what I'd been through, but for staying, for still being here. Kayla stood there as her grandmother drove away. She looked so unsure, like she was waiting for me to laugh and say it was all a joke. "You want to come up?" I asked. She gave a tiny nod. Inside, the apartment still smelled like fresh paint and takeout. I'd bought a cheap second-hand couch and a twin bed for the second room, which I'd set up with new sheets, a reading lamp, and a tiny desk that barely held a pencil holder. It wasn't much, but it was something. Kayla dropped her bag in the room, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at her shoes. "I like it," she said softly. "It's not a house," I said. "But it's honest." She didn't laugh, just nodded. We ate in silence that night, mac and cheese and frozen chicken tenders, because I wasn't exactly a chef. She barely touched her plate. I tried not to stare, but every time I looked at her, I saw how much the last few weeks had drained her. "You don't have to talk," I said finally. "But I'm here, if you want to." She didn't say anything at first, just sat there, poking her food. Then she whispered, "I feel like I'm broken." I looked up. "Like nothing feels real anymore," she continued. "I don't know what to believe. About Mom, about what I should have done, about any of it." "You were a kid caught in a bad spot," I said. "None of this is on you." She looked up, her eyes glassy. "I didn't want to lie to you. I really didn't." "I know. I was scared." "She said you'd get angry, that you'd blow up and do something crazy." I winced. "Is that what she told you?" "She said you had a temper, that you'd make it worse." I sat back, that familiar ache rising in my chest again. "Kayla, I would never hurt you. I'd never hurt anyone. You know that, right?" She nodded slowly. "I do now. But back then, she made me doubt everything." We sat there, two broken people trying to put something whole back together. I didn't offer full forgiveness. I wasn't ready for that, and she didn't ask for it. But I told her the truth. "I missed you, more than I knew I could." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I missed you too." I stood and opened my arms, not even sure she'd come. But she did. She stood up, walked over, and hugged me tighter than she had since she was a little girl. She buried her face in my chest, sobbing quietly, like she'd been holding it in for years. We stood there for a long time. No timelines. No expectations. Just pain, finally shared. Later that night, I heard her moving around in the small room, opening drawers, unpacking, making the space hers. When I passed by her door, she looked up. "Do you think we'll be okay?" she asked. "I think we'll be better than before," I said. "Might take time, but yeah, we'll get there." She smiled for the first time in weeks. Not a big smile, but a real one. And I realized then, it wasn't about fixing what had been broken. It was about building something new from the truth this time. No more pretending. Just two people, starting over. Together. The final court hearing came 6 weeks later. By then, the dust had mostly settled. I'd memorized the route from my apartment to the courthouse. Elise had prepped me for everything again. She said this would be more of a formality than a fight. Still, I wore the same suit I'd worn to the first hearing, not out of superstition, just to remind myself how far I'd come since that first day I walked in shell-shocked and humiliated. Kayla didn't come this time. The arrangement had already been approved, shared custody between me and Tara's parents, with Kayla living full-time with me and occasional weekends at their house. Tara hadn't contested it. When I stepped into the courtroom, I didn't expect to feel anything. But then I saw her. Tara sat alone in the front row, dressed in a dull gray cardigan and slacks that looked slept in. Her makeup was smudged, or maybe not there at all. She looked older, like the weight of everything had finally caught up to her. Nathan was nowhere in sight. Elise leaned toward me. Her lawyer filed a withdrawal notice. "She's representing herself now." I didn't respond. I just watched as Tara shifted uncomfortably in her seat, eyes low, like she didn't want anyone to look at her too closely. The judge reviewed the case file, spoke a few quick formalities, and approved the final custody and property terms. No one objected. Tara didn't even look up. Afterward, outside in the parking lot, I was unlocking my truck when I heard the hurried steps behind me. "Gavin, wait." I turned. Tara stood there, shoulders hunched, eyes red. "I just need 5 minutes," she said. I didn't say anything, didn't nod, didn't walk away either. She took that as a yes. "I didn't think it would end up like this," she said. Nathan, he left. 3 weeks ago. I didn't flinch. Didn't offer sympathy. He got mean. Controlling. Started accusing me of cheating the second I talked to anyone. He smashed my phone one night. I had to lock myself in the bathroom until he left. I stared at her, hands in my pockets. I didn't know where else to go, she added. I've been staying with a coworker. Just until I figure things out. And now you're telling me this because... I asked. Her eyes flicked up, and for a second I saw the old Tara. The one who used to laugh at my terrible jokes. The one I thought I knew. I made a mistake, she said. A huge one. I was stupid. I let something ugly ruin everything. I thought Nathan was exciting, but he unraveled me. She stepped closer. I know it's too late to undo what happened, but I was wondering if maybe... She hesitated. If maybe we could talk. Just talk. I looked at her for a long moment. I remembered the nights we stayed up planning our future. I remembered the sound of her laughter when Kayla took her first steps in our living room. I remembered 1,000 tiny moments that once meant everything. And then I remembered the moving truck. The smug smile on Nathan's face. The way she never even flinched when I begged for an explanation. No, I said firmly. We're not doing this. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wasn't used to hearing that from me. You walked away, I continued. You chose someone else. You dragged our daughter through it. You don't get to crawl back when it blows up in your face. She swallowed hard. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking just fine. I cut in. You made a plan. You waited until I was at work. You brought movers. You brought him. That wasn't confusion. That was betrayal. She looked down at the asphalt, blinking fast. I deserve that. Yeah, I said. You do. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay. I'm sorry. For a moment, I saw the weight of her regret. Not the dramatic kind, not crocodile tears, but something quieter. Heavier. I hope you figure it out, I said. But whatever this is, me and you, it's done. She didn't argue. She just stood there, alone in the middle of the parking lot, as I got in my truck and pulled away. I didn't look back. Not this time. 3 months passed. The mornings came easier now. I'd wake up before the alarm, make a pot of strong coffee, and head to work while the rest of the world was still stretching and yawning. My promotion had come through 2 weeks after the final court date. Field supervisor over 2 remote drilling crews spread across southern Louisiana and parts of Texas. It meant long drives, long hours, but also better pay and more say in how the jobs ran. I liked that. I liked knowing my hands still did something that mattered. Kayla had slowly started settling into the apartment like it was home. At first, she'd only stay weekends, then a few weekdays. Eventually, she brought over her laptop, a handful of textbooks, and a bag of makeup she never actually wore but always kept close. When she asked if she could start getting mail at my address, I knew what it meant. She was choosing to stay. We didn't talk about Tara much. Only when it came up, like when Kayla got a message asking to meet for coffee and she just quietly deleted it. I didn't push. I figured when she was ready to talk about it, she would. Therapy helped. Barbara had arranged it through a family friend, and I agreed as long as I could help cover the cost. Kayla went every Thursday after school. She never said much about what happened in those sessions, but she always seemed a little lighter afterward, like she was letting go of something each time. One Thursday, she came home and tossed her backpack on the couch. You know, she said, kicking off her shoes, I think I want to study psychology. I raised an eyebrow. Psychology? Yeah, she said, plopping down at the table. My therapist says I'm good at seeing through people. She says I have insight or something. I smiled. You do. Always have. Even when I didn't want to hear it. She looked at me, serious for a moment. I used to think everything was about stability. That Mom was right about needing someone who could offer security. She wasn't completely wrong, I said. But there's more to a person than what they bring home on a paycheck. Kayla nodded slowly. I think I understand that now. That night, Monica came over for dinner. We'd met a month earlier on site. She was a logistics coordinator, tough as hell, and didn't put up with any nonsense from the field crews or the office. She'd ribbed me about my outdated equipment manifest, and I teased her about typing too hard. Somehow, it turned into lunch, then into a couple late-night phone calls, then dinner. She was different. Steady. Sharp. Had a dry sense of humor and a habit of calling me out when I got too serious. That night she brought Thai food and a six-pack. Kayla hovered near the kitchen at first, unsure, but eventually joined us at the table. The conversation was easy. Nothing forced. Monica didn't try too hard to impress, and Kayla didn't retreat into her shell. After dinner, Kayla disappeared into her room, and Monica and I sat on the balcony overlooking the parking lot. "You've got a good kid," she said, sipping her beer. "I know," I said. "Took me a minute to figure that out." Monica nudged me with her shoulder. "Don't beat yourself up. You've been through hell." Still standing, I looked out at the streetlights casting long shadows across the pavement. "Barely." She smiled. "Barely still counts." A week later, Kayla brought home a college pamphlet. University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Psychology program. She laid it on the table like it was a peace offering. "Just thinking about it," she said. "I think you'd be good at it," I told her. She smiled and grabbed a pen. Started circling things. I watched her from across the table. The kid who once wouldn't say a word at dinner was now making plans. Laughing again. Living. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next blow to land. I felt hope. Real, solid, don't need to look over your shoulder kind of hope. And it felt damn good. It was early spring when I sold the house. The yard was overgrown by then, and the paint had started to peel in the corners of the windowsills. I walked through each room one last time, empty now, stripped of everything but memories. The bedroom where Tara once whispered plans for the future. The hallway Kayla used to race down in socked feet. The kitchen table we'd argued over money and school and nothing at all. I didn't feel much. Not anymore. Just a quiet sort of closure. The couple who bought it were young, newly married, full of excitement. They walked through the place holding hands, talking about nursery colors and weekend projects. I handed them the keys without hesitation. It was their turn now. Back at the apartment, things were steady. Kayla was attending classes at the local community college while working part-time at a bookstore down the street. She talked about transferring to the university next fall, and every time she said, "my future," she sounded more and more like someone who finally believed in having one. We kept building, her and me. Some nights we cooked dinner together. Other times we ordered takeout and watched reruns of old sitcoms. We didn't pretend everything was perfect, but there was honesty now, and that made all the difference. As for Tara, she floated through town like a fading shadow. I saw her once outside the grocery store. She looked thinner, tired, wearing sunglasses on a cloudy day. She nodded at me. I nodded back. That was it. No awkward conversation. No pleading. Just quiet acknowledgement that whatever we'd had was over. She dated on and off, from what I heard. Nothing stuck. Nothing stable. I didn't care. I'd stopped asking why a long time ago. Some things just fall apart. And sometimes that's the best thing that can happen. Monica and I were still seeing each other, slow and easy. She had her own place, her own life, and no interest in pretending we were something we weren't. That suited me just fine. She understood the pieces I was still putting back together and never tried to rush me. One evening, Kayla came out onto the balcony while I was watching the sun go down. She leaned against the railing beside me. "You ever think about going back to the old house?" I shook my head. "Not once." She smiled. "Me neither." We stood there for a minute, side by side, the warm air brushing over us. "I'm glad we're okay," she said. "We're better than okay," I replied. "We made it." She nodded, and I could see it in her face. That same quiet peace I'd been chasing for months now finally settled in both of us. The past still echoed sometimes. A scent, a song, a random piece of mail addressed to Mr. and Mrs., but it didn't hurt anymore. It didn't pull me backward. I had my daughter. I had my job. I had a life I built on my own terms, from the wreckage of betrayal to something whole again. And most importantly, I had peace. Real peace. Hard-earned. Deserved.